welcome. Welcome to the American Writers Museum. I'm Allison Sansoni, the program director here at the museum, and as we begin, a few housekeeping notes. The Continental Literary Magazine, our presenters tonight, have magazines at the front desk and will happily give you information about their important work promoting reading and writing. You can also find them online at continentalmagazine.com. To learn more about the American Writers Museum, become a member, attend programs and exhibits, and to participate in our educational and cultural initiatives, please visit our website at americanwritersmuseum.org. Thank you for joining us for this program and for supporting the past, present, and future of American writing. The walls of this museum are lined with writers who've tried to make sense of the ravages of war. From Cabeza de Vaca exposing the violence of Spanish colonialism in the Americas, to Stephen Crane and Martha Gellhorn covering the world wars, to the eloquent counterculture poets of the 1970s assailing the war in Vietnam, writers have used their voices to speak up for those under attack and check the excesses of those in power. Tonight we're joined by three notable contemporary writers whose work in the context of the conflict in Ukraine seeks to build a bridge between America and those Central European countries involved to talk about writing across borders. Sándor Jászberényi is the editor-in-chief of the Continental Literary Magazine and the author of The Devil is a Black Dog, Stories from the Middle East and Beyond. In 2017, he received Hungary's Libri Literary Prize. As a correspondent for Hungarian news sites, he's covered the conflict with the Islamic State, unrest in Ukraine, the revolutions in Egypt and Libya, and the Gaza War. His writing has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times Magazine, and the Brooklyn Rail. Divides his time between Budapest and Cairo. Máté Makai is a writer, critic, and journalist. His second volume, The Rise of Atlantis, published by Caligram Publishing House in 2022, contains dystopian experiments regarding an imagined near future. He works full-time managing a Hungarian designer brand, and his psychedelic pop rock musical formation goes by the name of The Monument. In his free time, he plays guitar and football. Dániel Levente Pál is executive director of the Continental Literary Magazine, as well as a poet, writer, circus dramaturge, and director. He's the author of 5 poetry collections and 2 books of short stories. His writings have been translated into English, German, Portuguese, Spanish, Serbian, Romanian, Arabic, Turkish, Chinese, and Thai. Since 2016, he has been working for the Capital Circus of Budapest as a playwright and dramaturge. As circus director, he won the Stafeta Prize and the special prize of the 13th Budapest International Circus Festival. Welcome to you all.
Thank you for having us here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to start by having each of you in turn describe a little bit your work as writers and tell us about how you see yourself as a writer.
Well, let me start. I'm the editor-in-chief. I'm with the name unpronounceable when it comes to pronunciation. So I always have this joke that I pay $100 on spot who can pronounce my family name, which is Jászberényi. No Hungarians allowed to play. So if I would like to answer your question, as a writer, I was very much influenced by American literature since the very beginning. So I think there's a generation, especially my generation, was very much influenced by both classic and contemporary American literature. So I started to work as a journalist, and I was covering the last 15 years armed conflicts all around in Africa and the Middle East. And I just recently came back from Ukraine, where we were covering the Russian offensive and then the counter-offensive of the Ukrainians in the eastern part of the country. Basically, what I do is trying to war about the experience of war, especially because we don't have this, what you have in America, a long history of correspondence and writers who are reflecting the war, as you mentioned, Gellhorn, or we can talk about Hemingway. So I'm basically very much under the influence of this kind of writing. And the idea was to create, because of the language barriers. Don't forget that Hungary and all the other Central European countries are tiny countries with their own languages. So there's a problem to bring our great literatures to the American audience because of the language. And now there's a new generation which is fluent in English, who speaks great, speaks close to native English. So we have great translators, and the idea was to create an American magazine, which is the Continental, and have a special focus on our contemporary writing. But I would like to underline this one, that this is an American magazine. We have authors like Marina Abramovich, Noam Chomsky, Abel Ferrara, so name it. So we have the big names from the States, and we would like to, create a discussion between the two continents. And this is how we started it. I speak already too much, so I can give it the others.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to offer $100 for Sándor to stop telling this joke in the US. My name is Máté Makai, and here it is. I do not possess that kind of material like Sándor, so I'm approaching some kind of speculative fiction. That's what we call this genre in Hungary. I am experimenting with existing genres like science fiction, dystopia, and crime stories, and I like to approach literature as some kind of staging some kind of mindset for readers. So my short stories, I have 2 collections of short stories so far, are some kind of philosophical experiments. My first collection was more philosophical. I was writing those stories during my writing PhD thesis, which isn't finished. And those texts are more influenced by philosophers. The second one is more readable. This is more experimental in the sense of narratives and narrative technology, and approaching well-readable text with ideas. My texts are hugely influenced by also American writers like Philip K. Dick, Don DeLillo, and I must say Thomas Pynchon, but that would be a big word. So, but the writing about the era of the Cold War is some kind of inspirational, because these years we are approaching something very similar in some terms, like uncertainty and international politics, something like that. And there are more works in progress that are trying to follow this current situation. Daniel?
Thank you for being here. My name is Dániel Levente Pál. I have normally, at first sight, I have 3 given names with no family names, because Pál is Paul, Daniel is Daniel, and Levente is an ancient Hungarian given name. And every time I go abroad, there is a mixture, which is the first, which is the given, Levente, Dániel Pál, Levente, and I just like the game there, I can pick in the right order my names. Yes, my name is normally, my given name is Daniel. And as a writer, I studied French and Portuguese and Spanish, and I have the influence of the Latin American magical realism, and especially the Portuguese the Nobel Award winner José Saramago. And I would like to make some realistic novelism, because I lived for a decade in the slum of Budapest, in the most dangerous district of Budapest. Already the most dangerous part of Budapest, and I wrote 2 collection of short stories, and yes, I really love that project. It's like an anthropological, just go there and live there, and know and understand from inside this living organism as a city or as a district of a city. And yes, my other life is for the circus, and I used to write children plays. Hundreds of thousands of children came to our circus for a year, and it's funny to make lyrics, to make the conception of how can a professional production of literature, circus art, dramaturgy, musicians, and it's not a solo work. Writing is a solo work. There are you and your laptop or typewriter machine and the paper, a blank paper. And for the circus, it's a teamwork. Teamwork of the choreographers, of the director, of the dramaturg. It's more than a dozen people.
And the elephants, right?
Sometimes an elephant, sometimes parrots, sometimes dogs, sometimes tigers and lions. And yes, as my friend and colleagues said before, 2 or 3 years ago we had this concept. Sándor already had translated books into English and other languages, and I, just like me, you said it's from the Far East to the neighboring European countries. My books and texts and poems translated in more than a dozen languages. And we know the difficulties how the Hungarian writer can go abroad, not just personally, with some level of language skills, but with the qualified literary translation of the words. How can we get readers or audience abroad? It's English, it's easier because we can understand and speak in English, but you know, in Serbian or in Chinese, which is absolutely, you are in the middle of nowhere when you have your book in these languages. And we were talking so much time, how can we change the world, change the situation of Hungarian literature, and how can we make a bridge, a door to the English language readers? Because when you exist in English translation or when you have an American editor, American publishing house or American book, you can sporadically go everywhere in the world. And this concept, the Continental magazine, which we had in our mind, and yes, with some helps and with some money, we can start last year, and we have 4 issues, the 5th one in print. And as we are in the 2nd tourney in the US, and as we have the feedbacks, it works. We have so many readers, we have so many followers on social media, and the Hungarian and other Central European authors have some new unexpected ways to the readers of our world or our planet.
Just to expand on that a little bit, I wanted to ask about the importance of making those connections, what that does for writing and also for the writers.
Well, you know, I think there's a concept introduced by Johann von Wolfgang Goethe in the 19th century of world literature, which means, like, you know, the human species connects to each other. It does not really matter which nation or which language we belong, which language we speak. And, you know, there are successful integration to the world literature of previous nations, like the Spanish literature, the Portuguese or even the Irish literature has a long tradition. And Central European languages and Central European literature, which is pretty much like classified, classy, and it belongs to the world literature, had this barrier of language. And right now, because of the Soviet Union, because of the Cold War, or writers had no chance to present themselves in America. And America is the leading cultural beacon of the world, of the Western culture. And this is what actually this magazine can give to both to the Americans and both to the Europeans, is to be able to see each other's approach to life and the big questions. Literature is always about life. If it's not about life, it's not literature. And this is what we can offer to the American readers, that they can get an insight to how these nations are working. And right now, history proves this, that this has importance, because as you can see now, the leading news of the world is the war in Ukraine, which is our neighbor country, and we dedicated an issue to contemporary Ukrainian poetry, female poets. So, there's this ancient Latin phrase that in war the muses are silent. But it turns out it's not true, because we have the best and most interesting female poets in our issues. And this is what we do. Don't forget the wars and the tension in the world is not just on resources like oil or anything. It's about the domination of the cultures. And by translating our works and the works of the Central European, including the Ukrainians, to English, it's just giving a chance to these countries to appear where they belong, to the Western narration of world literature. And that's why we are doing this. And that's why we have some attention now of this project. This is a quarterly magazine, the Continental, and what we aim to do is finding the most influential or interesting American writers, invite them to work for us, and put them into a discussion with their counterparts across the ocean. And this is surprisingly well working at this very moment. So the Ukrainian House in New York, they are hosting the unique. We had a discussion over there about the works. So this is how we're trying to integrate Central European countries, because there's a cultural war as well, and we will not go back to the darkness.
I'd like to back your argument with some philosophical reasons as well. If we are talking about world literature, as Goethe mentioned, it's not about knowing other cultures and working with some kind of proper humanism. Knowing other cultures is also about knowing yourself. If anybody takes a book from the shelf, wants to read something about otherness and about himself as well. If I want to know myself, I have to meet otherness in completely philosophical standpoint. If I meet some kind of other culture, language, another history which is not familiar for me, I can learn something about myself. I think it's an argument from the hermeneutics, from Hans-Georg Gadamer, maybe. We discussed his works.
A lot of hipsters are now nodding.
Yeah. So meeting foreign literature is not just about learning about foreign countries, but also about learning our countries. Because of if you meet the other, you put in progress some kind of eventness, where you and the difference, and this difference is a dynamic event during the reading.
To continue this world literature concept with just one idea. There is a professor named American professor and scholar David Damrosch. He has the conception or idea of there is a line, red line, and under the red line, there are national literatures which are really important but jailed in the language and culture. And up the red line, there is the word literature. What is word literature? When you read the Winnie the Pooh, or when you read the Jungle Book, or when you read Sophocles, it's not a part of Indian, Anglo-Saxon literature or ancient Greek literature. It's a part of something universal literature. That is word literature. If we can select with emotion, with intuition, some good texts, short stories, non-fiction, poems from Central European national literatures, in a very good English translation, and if we can get or catch this red line or can go up or to the red line, and these texts can become word literature with some universal meaning, it's the point, or it's something we would like to make.
It's our shared humanity.
Exactly. May I just one more note to this question? It's like why should you subscribe or buy the Continental Literary Magazine? It's because everyone is talking about there's bombs are falling in Ukraine and people are running to shelter, but it's not in the news that Russia is actually trying to erase Ukrainian national literature, Ukrainian identity, and the thing is, and that's why it's utmost of importance to have these kind of literatures allowed to enter to the main discussion of the Western literature tradition, because we have to actually fight for it. These people are actually fighting for it, and that's why we dedicated one of the issues to the Ukrainian contemporary poetry, because they are actually trying to fight back for their own identity. Because I mean, the Russian standpoint is that there's no such thing as Ukrainian language or Ukrainian culture. So
and the good literature is a voice. And you can hear a voice from Ukraine. You can hear so many things from Ukraine, from a war situation. And if a regime or attacker would like to shut down all the voices, yeah. you are out of the range, and you can't hear the voice, can't hear. And literature, when you can read it in your language or in English, it's something from that culture, it's something from that soul of the nation.
Yeah, and this like the United States, which is actually the beacon of freedom of speech, of civil liberties. The U.S. is supporting the war in Ukraine in so many ways. And I always, as a war correspondent, just got back from the front lines, I always got this question from American friends that how can we support Ukraine? What can we do to help them even more? They're collecting money or they're sending stuff. And it's like, I think the best answer to this question, how can you support? Read a Ukrainian poem. Read a Ukrainian short story, because the country which is invading them, they don't want you to know that they are a country. They have their voices. So if you want to support the war in Ukraine, or if you want to support liberal democracies, the freedom of speech, especially in these hard times in that region, don't send $2. Take the time to read one poem.
Translate, publish, and read.
Yes.
It's an assertion of Ukrainian identity.
Exactly.
It could be a movement, translating, publishing, and reading, especially reading.
So it's like Americans got a really big heart, but if you spend $2 to support the cause, which is a just cause to defend the country, yes, you helped, but you will help them more if you know why they are fighting for. This is about the Continental. We're not giving you updates about from the front lines, we don't tell you how they fight. We tell you why they fight. And that's a big difference. That's a big difference.
Sergei Gerasimov wrote a book about the siege of Kharkiv, and he's also a literary writer. And in the beginning of the book, he says, "Okay, I'm not going to present to you beautiful texts, good sentences. I just have short time because rockets are flying above my head." So he just sat down in every 10 minutes and wrote the facts during the siege. So you can imagine what those who wrote poems doing this could experience while writing this.
It was the time to read this diary of Kharkov, because it's a raw but beautiful text with so many intertexts in it and so many also situations, just the relativism of humanity. When you are in your flat, but there are so rockets and bombs around you, and so many funny little situations of that crisis situation in a city.
What does the community of other writers mean in times like this? In when you're writing from conflict, when you're attempting to make sense of things, how do you depend on and work with communities of other writers?
Well, you know, we have the common language of English, so we're working with reaching out to translators. We are from a generation whose second language, close to native level, is English. So basically the barriers for communication are down, so we can communicate with each other. And all the writers, at least the good ones, we always share our concern about humanity. We stand up for the poor, for the oppressed, for the freedom of love, for everything like this. So there's not a big difference between a Ukrainian writer and American writer, because there's universal morals in the world, and a good writer always representing universal morals. So to answer your question, the first question a writer can ask is, how can I help? How can I help you to give you a voice? And this is what we do. We are trying to give voice to those who don't have the tools to reach out to other peoples. And you know, I mean, we did not invent the wheel, because there's plenty of magazine dedicated to different literatures. But I mean, the Continental is available in Barnes & Noble all around the country here in the States. So we have an audience, and this is how we can help. But to answer your question, it's always like this. So there's no conflicts between writers when it comes to world literature.
And we are the internet generation. If you ask a question on social media in English, you have so many answers from all around the world. If you have something in your mind, just like a magazine, edit a magazine, 2 or 3 decades ago, it could be some impossible task to do a magazine just like this.
Yeah, because of the communication. Now we are the age to have this tools at our service, that, you know, no matter what is the time, you can reach in less than 1 second every part of the world. You can actually give a phone call to someone in India, and you can discuss. So the world is connected, the writers are connected, and now we are creating something on a common language, which is English, and that's why it's quite an interesting project.
The tools and miracles of communication.
Oh yes.
Because we can discuss about everything. We can, if we have
Real
a
time.
problem with each other, we can discuss. We can we can easily find a way to each other, to ask from the right source. Mainly, it's the idea of right source, because we are in the age of fake news. It's something else, but if I read a poem, I can write to the author.
Immediately. I mean, it's like that.
It's
that
a
every moment.
possibility.
That there's a possibility of discussion both online and in writing, and we are having a print issue because we want this to be the part of the libraries, of the home libraries, because it's good to have it in your hand.
Which is just online, is ephemeral. It's nothing, it's a leaf in a wind.
You want the physical
Physical,
evidence.
just like a marble table.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If I can add something to this matter, actually, I was always interested in Western culture, and I wasn't caring about our neighbors, Slavic countries and cultures. I read a lot of Russian literature in my childhood and later, but when this war started, I fixated on Ukraine. I have a couple of friends in Budapest, Hungary, a Turkish guy and a Ukrainian girl. And we were walking our dogs in the middle of February, and we were telling this Ukrainian girl that you should take your mother out from Kiev because there's going to be a war. And she said, "Oh, it's always like that. Many years ago, it's been on." And she wasn't believing in the theory and the facts. So 2 weeks later, the Russians started, and she wasn't into literature as well, and her mother was trapped in Kiev during the bombing, and it was hard to take her out. And the point of my story is that in this summer we were walking our dogs again, and we were talking about that we are coming here representing the Continental Magazine in the United States, and I told her that we are representing also Ukrainian literature, and she wasn't a reader. She wasn't interested in her culture in a way that she fled her country. She moved from her country, and she asked me, so you mentioned Ukrainian poets, and please tell me the name who she is. So I just sent her the link to the poems, and I think this is some kind of ongoing communication. It is started after the war by and fed by this thing that we're representing the Ukrainian literature in the Continental Magazine. So it's some kind of act which was made by literature. So it's some kind of event of communication between cultures.
Yeah. It's that you're forming that connection and proving to them that people are out there who care.
Yeah.
What has there been the response of audiences to this issue?
Well, we got very positive feedbacks. So, there's a community of the literary crowd all around the world. They are very much interested. But this is not just literary, this is political as well. And I mean, so far, everyone knows that, how the front lines are right now in Ukraine. But the thing is that they started to understand these people. Don't forget that there are really, on a philosophical approach, there's something going on in Ukraine. There's a new nation is forming, that new national myths are emerging. And here in the States, we received several letters saying that this was great to see how this is formed. So basically, the feedbacks are good, and this is only a 1-year-old magazine, so we are just finishing the last issue. And now the results are quite good, and everyone wants to get involved. So now all the other countries wants to get involved in the magazine, which is, I think, the best you can hope.
So it created a sense that, there were opportunities for people to help.
Absolutely, we have. You can't imagine, there's always these bad rumors about the big literary magazines. I don't want to say names here in the States that, it's like, some of the assistants are just hitting the table, and those which will fall down, the manuscripts will be not read. So basically, I didn't know that this actually can happen. We never do this, of course, but we are flooded with manuscripts. We are flooded with submissions from all around the world because it started to work. So if we will have more time and we have the the chance to continue this project, which is, it seems like that we will be okay for the next year, then this will be of interest for a lot of people, not just Americans.
There is a strange, there is a strange situation where we are now, because we have almost more manuscripts than readers.
Yeah.
So many people interested in submissions to have a hard copy of their poems, his or her writings, and just said, have you read the last issue? No, I have no time because I have some projects, I have something to write, read my manuscript and publish it. Okay, but why here? Do you like our magazine? Yes, it's beautiful.
No, I mean, never underestimate the
You are so cool, guys, and I want to publish there. I want to be part of that community. Okay, but why have you read one of the copies? No, I have no time. This is a strange situation.
I mean,
Just in Hungary and all abroad.
Never underestimate the people's interest to be poets and writers.
Absolutely. We
yeah.
know that very well here.
Everybody wants to be a famous
Writer,
poet.
yes, and the poet.
And the famous underlined.
No, I mean, actually,
Famous and rich.
we have a really high quality standards. We use a translation system where, you know, we have the source language, which is translated to English. Then we have our native English speaker editors who are checking the language. And then at the end, we have an American writer who doesn't speak English, just joking. So no, we have an American writer who is making sure that the translations are working as an independent English
Style correction.
work of art. So we have three level translation system. So we are very much keen on the quality of the content. And it happens that that's a bad example Daniel just gave us, but it happens. But on the other hand, we met serious writers who were very much interested in contributing to us. Let me just, give you a peep for next issue, which is in print now. So Abel Ferrara is writing his memoirs. I mean, at least these are the rumors, and it's published in all the magazines here in the States that the director is doing his memoirs, but you know, nobody expecting that to happen. Now we will publish part of it in the next issue. So this is how it works. And if we reach great writers and they are interested in working with us, I think that's the best we can achieve.
How do you know that you've reached an audience? How do you other than, you know, you have copy sales and you have numbers that you can point to, but how do you know that you've changed the way an audience thinks or behaves?
Well, you know, I mean, the age of big data analysis, it's easy to see how much people you reach because you get the sheer numbers. But it's better, it's much more interesting if we go to the Frankfurt Book Fair or we go to a book fair, and then, you know, now there are big American literary magazines, and there's not that much American magazines here in the States, which is, wants to cooperate with us. So they want to start a new project, and that, I think this is an indicator of the impact of the magazine. That, you know, we were going to have a joint projects with different magazines. I don't want to say name unless we forge a deal, but we're going to meet here during our stay here in the States, several editor-in-chiefs and editors to forge cooperation all around in the state. If we, let's say, this is how we see. If you go to the book fairs, the international ones, and there are, you know, really serious publishers.
Just in the 3 days of the Frankfurt International Book Fair, which is one of the highest and biggest book fair of the Western world, and we have these 3 days, more than 30 serious conversation about the future and about the concept of our magazine.
Yes, so it's collaboration. So it's like we are here to integrate everyone who wants to participate. So we are not exclusive but inclusive. So So that's the idea, and I think this is how we can actually measure the impact of the magazine. That now we have some American literary forums, and when I'm saying American, who are very much interested in contributing to the project in any ways, and we are very much up to that. So this is how we can measure, because after 1 year, and don't forget, I mean, there's no way a literary magazine will put bread on your table. There's no way for that. But we can get even, and that's.
And I think we can be unique and exotic somehow in the United States, because it's a European literary magazine in American English, and so many fresh, new, emerging voices in literature from Europe.
It's like we have this focus, but don't forget
1,000 pages for a year could be interesting for the readers of the United States.
And of course, we have the biggest names in the States. So it's like we have like Roxane Gay, Daphne Merkin, we have Marianne Williamson. Really name it. So it's like we have, and we're talking about 4 issues. So I think this is a good path.
Máté, I wanted to ask you what effects you've seen on from the cultural exchange. What new connections have you formed as a writer as a result of this work?
I'm very fresh to this magazine, but this tour is exceptional in this sense. So my second book came out in this June. It's a collection of short stories. I think my collection of short stories is some kind of North Atlantic story. The title of the book is The Rise of Atlantis. It's about a background company which shows up in different stages of these stories. So I think these stories have the advantages of being international. So many stories takes place in Budapest. Some of them takes place in the United States. Some of them in fictional, some kind of European state like the United States in Europe. That story takes place in Dublin. So I think my approach would be to this journey as well would be to tell about some of the stories, because they can be interesting thematically to foreigners. I'm not some kind of European writer in the sense that I'm not writing about European history, or that's not my starting point. As I mentioned, I don't have this material like Sándor has, so I'm not trying to moralize about our past. I don't possess that kind of material as well. So I hope that this internationalness can be interesting as well in the United States. I cannot pass the fact that many Hungarian fellow writers and critics and editors said that they can feel the influences of mainly Western writers and not Hungarians. So I'm not properly answering your question because I cannot show you results yet, but it's some kind of hope, and I think my text could be compatible for a Western reader.
If I may just to add one note to this, so we will meet plenty of editors, fellow writers, and Máté is here to, I mean, he's my author. As an editor-in-chief, I don't write to my own magazine, literary works. So I have an ego, but not that big. So we brought Máté to introduce his American counterparts and to put them into a discussion. So anything can happen because we're going to give lectures in universities and whatnot. So this is our first stop at the tour, what we're doing here in the States. So the idea is to find his counterpart here when it comes to literature in the States and create a discussion. The whole magazine is about discussion.
And without a big data analysis, we will see physically his first readers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's a big moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, just imagine I was on holiday in the beginning of September in France, and one of the editors, Balázs, who is fortunately is not here today, but he called me that there's this opportunity, and imagine the situation that somebody says to you that yeah, you have 2 books and you can have the opportunity to show that in some way to this country. So.
Was there anything that I haven't asked you that you would want to talk about to our American audience tonight?
You have asked everything I think we have to tell. Thank you very much again for having us here.
Oh, thank you very much for being here, and we'll
Thank you
continue
for the
discussion
opportunity.
off the microphones. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.